Hey friend, welcome to the Halfway to Dead podcast. I'm your host, Jen Lovell. Listen, you and I have reached that age where we are done with the bullshit. We know that midlife is our chance to flip the script and experience life on our own terms. It's time to reconnect with our higher selves and reclaim our inner peace. Are you ready with an open heart and an open mind? Awesome, you're in the right place. Hop in and ride shotgun with me on this midlife spiritual journey. Hey everybody, welcome back. So today I interviewed Sue Schneider. Sue has her Ph.D. She's a medical anthropologist, integrative health coach, certified mindfulness instructor, and author. She leads community health and wellness initiatives for Colorado State University Extension and has brought mindfulness training to thousands of individuals over the last decade as a community health educator and extension professor. She lives in Fort Collins, Colorado with her husband, teenage son, and her 2 dogs, which you might hear in the background in the interview, which we don't care. We love the dogs, right? So Sue is the author of the book, which I have read and I love, Meeting the Moment with Kindness, How Mindfulness Can Help Us Find Calm, Stability, and an Open Heart. And listen, I know what day that you guys are listening to this. This is the day after the election here in the U.S. And I know it's on the world stage. No matter where you're listening from, you know what went down yesterday. So as I record this, it hasn't happened yet. But I already know that no matter what happened yesterday, we are waking up to a new world today. And so half of our country is pissed off and half of our country feels victorious. It doesn't matter which way this election went. That's the reality of it. So I think this actually timed perfectly because this feels like one of those moments that we need to meet with kindness, right? We need to find our calm, our stability, and keep our hearts open right now, here today. So I hope that the information she shares, and we talk about all kinds of stuff that has to do with mindfulness and how we can reframe things and look at things from a different direction. We learn how to take a pause, which again, I think is great for right now because I think we all need to probably today take a pause. Okay. Let's not go crazy, upset or gloating on the internet, on the socials. Let's take a step back, right? And just meet this moment with kindness. Can we? Will you guys join me in doing that here today? Okay. So let's jump in and let's hear what Sue has to say about how we can accomplish this. Not just because it's a tough week here in the U.S., but because in general, we have the holidays coming up. We got to meet that with kindness. You know, this whole world, we've all got to figure out how to be kinder, take a pause, and really meet all these moments with an open heart and an open mind. All right, guys, whether this is a tough day or not for you, let's jump in and find out from Sue how to meet this moment with kindness. Hey, Sue, thanks for being with us.
Hi, Jen. Thanks for the invitation.
Yes, so everyone's already heard about your book and all the things you do. So we were just talking before we started recording that this is a very important conversation because mindfulness, I feel like like your book is Meeting the Moment with Kindness. And I feel like we all need to be figuring this out.
We do.
Both in our personal lives. I feel like everything going on right now is a really great reason for us to talk about mindfulness. So let's just start with Sue, like your story, like where did this all start for you? Let's just start with like how you were brought up just a little bit, and then we'll move on from there to where you actually like started to realize how important being mindful was and is.
Yeah. I think some of us are born seekers, and I think I knew that at an early age. I was actually born and raised Jewish, and lived in a small town in Kansas with a very small number of Jewish folks. And it was a complicated experience to, try to find my way in a religion that I didn't really understand what was this concept of God. And while it was a cultural connection and familial connection, and that was a bit of my background, I really was left wanting, what happens after you die? What is the force out there? How do we make decisions and guide our hearts based upon some force? And I really didn't have answers. When I was applying for college, I actually wrote my college entrance essay based on the book Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, because I was so touched by just this moment of Siddhartha sitting on the river and recognizing the oneness of all. I could feel it kind of viscerally in my body, what that meant. That was very different than my kind of religious upbringing. And I really dove into Eastern spirituality and tried to find some answers that way. I was a philosophy major in college, but that was very intellectual for me. And it shifted when I actually had real experiences, for example, practicing yoga, when I actually could connect with a deep stillness in a way that I had never done and felt something just stir within me. It was those somatic experiences early on, I think, that made me recognize I need to just keep exploring. I need to keep deepening. And it's not just what I'm reading and learning, but it's really how this feels to me. But the real turning point for me was I was a young anthropologist. This was in the early 2000s, and I was spending a year in Mexico. I was doing my dissertation research on a group of women health promoters in Mexico that were actually, it was very interesting. They were bringing a lot of global healing traditions into community centers in small towns in Mexico. And one of the health promoters ran into an American woman in Mexico City who said, hey, and they started talking about what was happening in these community centers. And the woman ended up being a meditation teacher. And she said, why don't I come and join your group? And I can offer a week-long meditation kind of training and retreat, because that's kind of what she was doing there in Mexico that summer. And so I was brought into this kind of kicking and screaming, because I was like, oh, I can't give up a week.
Too busy for that.
To sit. Right. What am I going to, I'm going to sit and meditate for a week. It was such a transformative experience for me to go that deep and spend that time working with all of the anxiety, all of the real, powerful thoughts that were going through my mind at that time. I was extremely anxious. I was struggling with anxiety a lot. And it really shifted things for me. Having that experience, I went back home. I was in Michigan at that time. I found a Sangha, a group of practitioners that met weekly. We could meditate together. We started reading some books together that really shifted how I was thinking about what meditation is, what mindfulness is. And it just set me on a path. Yeah.
Okay. So was this the point when, or was it earlier than this experience, that you were no longer felt Jewish?
No, when I went off to college and I was able to kind of move away from the family, I decided to let go, which was not easy, because there was a day, it was, I think, the first Rosh Hashanah, the high holidays that are really important in the Jewish culture. And I decided I'm not going to practice. I'm not going to go to temple. But what happened to me is I got paralyzed in complete anxiety and fear. What's going to happen?
Right. You're like, oh no, have I ruined everything? Yeah.
And these built-in beliefs about God and
it was scary. Yeah.
But I got through it. I went through that day. I was kind of under the covers and really, really struggling. But I got through it, and I'm like, nothing happened. I do have a choice. I can explore. There's nothing wrong with my religion, the tradition I was raised in. And it offers some great things which I can learn from, but I am going to find my own path. And I did. I mean, that's what we do in college. I think a lot of us do. Yeah.
And then, and your family, are they still Jewish? Is you guys still just agree to disagree? Or like, do you celebrate any of the Jewish tradition with your family anymore?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't celebrate.
Yeah, that's okay.
I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, we will light a menorah, for Hanukkah. We have a 14-year-old son. My husband's Catholic. We have gone through different phases in our life. We've spent many years in the Unitarian Universalist Church. We got married with a Unitarian Universalist minister, recognizing the value of all faiths. And that's more how we've raised our son. And
because you're both very open, regardless of your childhood upbringing. Yeah. And I feel like then if he's exposed to different things, he can then make his choice. I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That feels like really good parenting, Sue. Good job. I love that. No, you have spent a week doing a mindfulness meditation type of retreat in Mexico. Okay. Yeah. So then, and just some insights because you're a medical anthropologist. So just tell all the listeners in case they're wondering what in the world that even is or does. What does that do?
Yeah. So anthropologists are, really curious about other cultures, how other cultures do their practices and belief systems, behaviors. And for medical anthropology, it is really how other cultures do health and healing. And I've always been interested in different healing traditions. We have so much to learn from practices across the globe. Ancient practices and current practices. And so really exploring what those look like, the belief systems behind them, really powerful.
Yeah, and how that affects our health. Yeah.
How that affects our health.
Because I heard you speaking, I don't know if it was on another podcast or somewhere, but you talked about how all of the instincts we've kind of lost. How back in the day we were more hunting and gathering. We had heightened instincts, right?
Yeah. Well, we've lost contact with nature. We've lost really that deep awareness of what's going on with our body, a lot of trust. The fact that like 98% of our ailments actually tend to self-heal. We're so dependent and reliant on our Western medical system. Deeper sense of faith and trust in ourselves and utilizing the healing properties that exist within nature. There's so many modalities and,
that we've just disconnected with modern times. Yeah. Oh goodness. So we got to get back to some of that. Okay. Yeah. So you came back from Mexico and you got started on all this. When did you really turn your focus to this? And what did that look like?
Yeah. It was a few years later. I practiced with this Sangha weekly and really, deepened my practice. I really learned how to deepen my practice. My husband and I did a number of moves, but we ended up in North Carolina, in Durham, where there's a really robust, meditation community, and, Duke Integrative Medicine actually offers really amazing training in mindfulness-based stress reduction and the integrative health coaching program that I was a part of. It was during a time of my life that was really challenging. We had just had a child. Yep. And I found myself really struggling. The ground was kind of pulled out from under me. How do I operate now as a mom? How do I do all of the things that I normally do? Can I hack this, right? All those insecurities, right? Yeah, it was at that time. And I actually enrolled in the mindfulness-based stress reduction program, which was developed by Jon Kabat-Zinn many years ago. It's the kind of most well-known evidence-based mindfulness program. It radically changed my life. I had been practicing and reading and doing what I needed to develop kind of a deeper sense of what mindfulness is, but then going into this training program shifted things for me. The practices, and I would absolutely encourage anyone to take this program. They're online now, which they didn't used to be, but the practice is 40 minutes a day. So you meet weekly for 8 weeks, but you practice 40 minutes a day, which is quite a bit. And it shifted it's a commitment. It shifted my practice. They have quarterly days of mindfulness that they were offering. And so I was able to spend full entire days sitting and walking meditation and really learning how to deepen my practice that way. It just radically shifted me because not only could I really come back and get some training, but because I was applying it in every sort of way you could imagine. It was just a time of groundlessness for me. And I was learning how to kind of not even reclaim myself, because I wasn't the same person that I was before Aiden was born, but to kind of create a different kind of foundation that was needing to be more solid and needing to be more stable and needing to be more compassionate towards myself and certainly towards others. And that really shifted things for me. I went through the health coach training program. I began teaching mindfulness and teaching and coaching programs and, finding my way out of my own struggle, which, we view a lot of people as wounded healers, right? You have to go through those dark nights of the soul to really be able to understand what compassion is and understand what struggle truly is.
And I feel like, so me and all my friends that are listening right now, we're in this because I feel like midlife is a big time for people of change. It's a big time, like you talked about having a baby. That's a big time of change too. But then we get done raising the babies and we're figuring out all the next things. And it doesn't even have to be about babies, career, friends, everything. And we get here and we're like, ugh, like I need a change. So this is probably a really good time for us to implement some mindfulness. So tell us, because you said it changed so much, tell us some of the things that mindfulness really helps with. Obviously, anxiety.
Yeah.
But what else have you seen people really use mindfulness to help with?
I mean, and there's so much research on mindfulness and so many conditions that it almost simplifies it by saying it helps with this, this, and this. I think
overall everything.
Overall everything, because what it really does is help us stop fighting the discomfort in our lives. And it allows us to open space for anything that we're holding, whether it's thoughts or emotions or working with our reactivity and really becoming more responsive than reactive. It helps physiologically because breathing is a huge component and awareness of breath is the entry point and one of the key foundations of mindfulness. So there's the physiological aspects and there's the psychological aspects. When we learn to bring awareness to what's happening and learn to turn towards with compassion, we don't turn towards and like, oh, okay, I'm going to beat the anxiety out of me. But with gentleness and kindness, right, we end up having a very different relationship with life because nothing in our external world needs to change per se. I mean, it's always good to try to do your best to have the best life possible, right? But at the end of the day, we can't control the natural disasters, the illnesses to some extent, because you really can't control your external circumstances to some extent. You can't control when a natural disaster hits as it has last night, and we know about that, or to some extent when an illness hits or when someone around you is suffering. I just recently had a very close friend who got laid off of her job. These are things that you can't control. And yet there are aspects of your experience, your internal experience that can help you relate a little bit more wisely to the things that are happening in your life in a way that rather than, for example, we tend to go directly into fight or flight. Our sympathetic nervous systems are kind of jammed on because of the stress in our lives or some of these difficulties. And what we can learn to do with mindfulness is bring awareness to when we're in that reactivity space. So a lot of these external events really kick us into fight or flight. They really ratchet up our sympathetic nervous system, and it can be really chronic in this day and age with all of the stress and all of the struggle. And bringing awareness to where we are somatically in our bodies, where our minds are really going. And what we can do through mindfulness is actually alter that, and instead, we can kind of turn the on button to our parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest.
Okay, so mindfulness, we've established it can help us with pretty much anything that's going on in our lives. How do we get started on this mindfulness journey? Because like we talked about midlife,
Yeah.
we get some things going on. And so it's a
Yeah.
great time to become mindful. And we have a lot of stressful, crazy times going on
Yeah.
here in the US. For people listening outside the US, I'm sure you're paying attention to it too. But we've got a political environment. We did just the night before we recorded this, we had a Category 4 hurricane come through that has devastated many people. So there's just a lot of discourse right now. So because you teach this, so you know all the things. So you can tell us, what are some techniques? Because we talked about, I love that you said we need to start responding instead of reacting. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So how do we put that into practice though? How do we learn how to not just react to a person or a situation? How do we just learn how to respond? Is there a process we need to go through?
Well, the good news is that really mindfulness is everywhere, and people are connecting with podcasts. They're listening to people talk about all sorts of practices that are really helpful along the lines of mindfulness and meditation. Yoga classes are still, being offered everywhere and online, and you can access ways to connect with your body. Really what this is an intention. It is an intention to give ourselves some space to slow down at some point during the day.
Yep.
And we work our way up to being able to build the mindfulness muscle so that we have greater awareness more and more throughout the day. There's a difference between mindfulness and meditation, and this gets confusing in our culture. Yeah, meditation is the formal practice. It really is a great vehicle for mindfulness, but it's not the only vehicle.
Okay.
But to be able to sit in any position, it doesn't have to be cross-legged or whatever, just to sit on a couch like I'm sitting.
Yeah.
To put your hands in your lap. Maybe if you're comfortable to shut your eyes and literally to take a few breaths with the intention of, I'm just going to feel inside. I'm just going to feel inside for one moment. And I'm putting my hand on my heart because my practice is very heart-based and connected. And this is where the compassion comes in. I need to connect with my heart to feel what's going on. And this is part of my practice. But sitting and allowing whatever is coming up to come into your awareness without any goal of fixing, changing, definitely dropping the judgments around it. This is a very neutral process of noticing, allowing, potentially, if we can get there, even to befriending.
Yeah.
In just a moment of sitting. So this can be a formal practice where that's all you're doing. That is the definition of meditation, is all you are doing is bringing awareness into the moment and connecting, whether it's with the breath or whether it's with the heart, whether it's with the thoughts, as long as the intention is, I'm opening up space to be with whatever's in this moment. And that's really a commitment. It's an intention of, I still I've been practicing mindfulness meditation for 22 years now. I can still go through 4 hours in a day and not even realize I haven't taken a breath, because that's how hardwired, our habitual tendencies. We don't think about stopping and breathing. So, the mindful stop is so important. And I do share this in the book, because you can put, small reminders around you. We have timers, we have apps, we have all this sort of stuff to help us stop, right? But the mindful stop can take you through a few steps, because the acronym STOP can go for, you actually need to stop what you're doing, which is absolutely the hardest part, right? And it's so important. We just need to stop. T for take a breath. Connecting with the body is the gateway to mindfulness. People may not recognize this, but this is why breathing, ancient practice, is the gateway into the present moment for many people. For some people, the breath is a little bit difficult. It may be like noticing sensations in the hands or the feet. But this is a somatic awareness that brings you really close to the present moment. And so taking a breath is a great gateway, or taking a stop, however that might be. And then the O for stop is observing. And this is a little bit novel for some of us. When we can get to that point, where we have stopped and we've taken a breath, noticing, where the heck am I? I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling tense. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Observing what's happening. And all of these emotions actually live in the body. So it's really easy to say, where does that overwhelm, where is it sitting right now? Oh, it's in my belly. Okay. Observing, just noticing, there it is. There's the overwhelm without judgment.
Yep.
The observing can be powerful right there. And then the P is really important because it's, what do you want to proceed with? The P is for proceed.
Proceed.
Once you've taken stock, you have a choice. And this is where the react versus respond comes in.
Okay.
Because when you recognize you have a choice, that is the pause point between a stimulus and a reaction.
Okay.
If you don't realize you have a choice and you're just going to cruise on through your day, you're reacting because you're not aware. You haven't observed what's going on. But that pause point allows you to notice, and then you get to choose, how do I want to proceed? And when I do mindful stops, there are absolutely times I'm like, okay, did my mindful stop. I got to continue on. I got a deadline to meet, right? Yeah. But there are many, many times where I'm like, I need to go outside and put my feet in the grass and just let the sun hit my face.
Okay. So what if we're in a situation with, I don't know, a family, a friend, a coworker? So that all that we can feel like we do in that moment is just control what comes out of our mouth. Like just maybe the S part. Like we can't go sit and contemplate this for very long. So is it something that then you can just know that you're taking that pause and then come back to it later? Or does the STOP need to happen all at once?
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
Because sometimes we don't have time to do that whole process right when things are going down.
No. Yeah. But the beauty of building that mindfulness muscle is that you can more quickly over time shift into the awareness of, I'm getting triggered. I'm going from a 1 to 10 really fast. I'm in the middle of this situation. There is a way, as we develop this muscle, to be able to recognize internally, I'm on this path and simply bring awareness to it. We can simply bring awareness to it. And here's the thing, is that we're not going to be mindfully present all the time. And we are going to find ourselves in these difficult situations in the heat of the moment, expressing our anger. But the difference is when we practice these mindfulness tools over time, our reaction time lessens.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example. Last night, I was exhausted. It was a super stressful day. By the time I actually got home from dropping my son off to a football game and actually got home, all of that. Yeah. It was 7:00 and my husband and I were in the kitchen and we were kind of eating, I was at the counter. He was at the table. Yeah. And I wildly snapped. He said something and I wildly snapped at him. And, this just came out of my mouth. Yeah. So I went upstairs. I finished with my meal and I went upstairs and I took a breath. I actually was going to take a bath. I turned the water on and I just took a breath upstairs. And I immediately knew that was wrong. It didn't feel good for him. It didn't feel good for me.
Yeah. Right.
But I needed to take my own pause. I went upstairs and it may have been a minute and a half. I was able to come downstairs and say, you know what, Brendan, that was not right. I apologize. I know that didn't feel good. Now, keep in mind that same scenario has been happening. We've been married for over 20 years and that same scenario has been going on this entire time. The amount of time it would have taken me to get there 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago would have been 2 days,
Yeah, everything would have been really awkward for a couple days.
8
And
hours. Yeah. 5 hours.
because we're stubborn. We're stubborn too. We're like, no, I don't want to admit that I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But that lag time is getting shorter and shorter. And so that's the point, is like these things are going to happen in the office and we don't have the space to turn on a bathtub and like just take a breath.
No, we don't have time to go be mindful
No.
per se, but we can take
No.
that breath.
But we can bring awareness to it and we can walk away and have totally screwed up, but then we know we can do better. We can always do better.
Yes. And then we can come up with what comes out of our mouths a little better. And eventually, maybe those things won't come out of our mouths.
Eventually. But who knows? I don't know. Is it even possible?
We'll try and keep them in our head. I always try to just like, ooh, keep it in your head, girl. Don't let that come out of your mouth just yet.
Just yet.
Think on it. And then get in, because I do that. I'll give it a pause and say, okay, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait. And I'll respond to that email or I'll respond to that person when I've thought this through a little bit.
Right.
Because we can take our words back,
Right.
They're out there once they're out there.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got to do this STOP, especially. Yeah. Is that the best technique or are there any more techniques for say like the holidays coming up? We have to be mindful during our holiday events.
Yeah.
Because I think for a lot of families, that's when some conflict does occur because you've got a bunch of people getting together that aren't normally all together. And we all have our own paths and we all think the one we're on is the right one. And so it's tricky when we all get together because there's always going to be those relatives that you're a little bit like oil and water with, but they're your family. So you're getting together. So are there any other techniques or tips you have besides just taking that pause? Because in that case, would we just take the pause? Because then you're just kind of holding it in for the whole holiday and then letting it out when you get home. But is there anything we can do to like get over it quickly, respond to people, get understanding that like, okay, whatever, that's how they think. I don't, it's okay. I'm going to move on. Or what do you think?
So tricky.
How do we help these conflicts?
Right. Well, I have to say, as a coach, I've been doing a lot of training in internal family systems, and it is very linked with mindfulness because the concept is we have this core self that gets covered over with our parts. The parts can be really burdened by traumas of the past. There are parts that are trying to manage situations and then they overdo it. And I really like working with this model and mindfulness because in situations that you cannot get out of, you're with your family for 3 days. Right. It's really helpful to be able to name when a part comes up and a part's trying to be the attention seeker or a part is, slinking back and getting really depressed. And being able to name these experiences as parts that are just trying to protect us, just trying to make sure we're safe and doing it in a way that our younger selves had done it to protect ourselves can be a really useful tool. And what we can do in these situations is be able to name, that reaction came from this part. That was a hurt part from my past that's just trying to protect me. And the next step to that is like, can I send some compassion to that part? That part was speaking for me, and that's a hurt part. We all have our hurt parts with our families. None of us are operating from our core, enlightened selves when we're with our families.
Oh no, there's no fully enlightened families out there.
There's no fully enlightened family for sure.
No.
And so sending compassion to the parts of us that act up, that reject, that judge, that get angry, that becomes self-critical, and naming those parts. I feel like for longer term experiences when at night we could soothe, we could say, hey, part, I see what you were doing. Thank you for taking care of me. I'm okay now. and be able to make some space, like acknowledging these parts of us, but trying to make some space for this core mindful self that can be an adult.
Should we do some of this before the holiday? Is there some pre-work we can do? Like,
We should always be doing this.
because if we know we're heading into a situation, and a lot of us kind of know probably the conflicts that have the potential to come up. Okay, whatever's going on in our family, we know. I feel like we need to be in a certain mindset going into it.
Yeah.
Right? Knowing that these triggers are going to happen and I'm not going to react. I'm going to, I don't know, kind of look at it differently. Yeah. Like some prep work before that holiday.
Yeah. And a really good exercise could be mapping parts, because it doesn't take you being in the middle of the fire to know what are these kind of characteristics that pop up and what are the dominant ones are. And we literally can map them and where they are in our body. I have a map of a certain set of parts that I'm working with right now and where they live in my body, because you can get a trigger, they call it a trailhead, when you feel a sensation, you know, a discomfort, something, a familiar ache, and that's a trailhead. You know, oh, this part is needing some attention, is coming out. So getting familiar with this ecosystem. But this takes us right back to mindfulness. And this is the awareness. If we are not used to sitting with ourselves in silence and noticing what's coming up and getting familiar with these aspects of ourselves, it's a lot harder to map those parts. And if we can instill these practices before the holidays, and just what does it feel like to sit, and what happens when I'm really, really super triggered and I try to take a few breaths? Like, does that not work? What's the next step for me? Yeah. Some of us need to rely on, well, we could rely on a professional. We could rely on a tincture, a remedy, something that helps soothe us, a tea. Thinking about various ways of what do I need with me as my allies. I have so many allies that I will always travel with my allies. And this is really, kind of also goes to the point of like mindfulness and mindful awareness cannot fix everything. We can't overstate its value. That, first of all, it takes a lot of time to instill the natural kind of instincts to quiet our sympathetic nervous system. And that's really a practice. But there are times I have just gone through a 2-week period of pretty serious chronic pain in my back. I don't know what triggered it, but it's been one of the more difficult things I've ever dealt with, because I was severely debilitated for the first 5 days.
No, back pain is awful.
Back pain is awful. And there was nothing in my toolkit that was going to help me for the first few days. I couldn't sit and meditate in my regular posture. And so I would try to sit on the couch, and my pain level was just the most incredibly distracting thing from awareness. It was too painful to bring awareness to the pain. Yeah. And so I recognized, wow, this is, I have to be okay and drop the judgment on like, oh, I'm a mindfulness. I should know how to deal with this. Drop the judgment around that and be open to what this pain is trying to tell me. And perhaps it's going to teach me some other tools. There was one night, and Jon Kabat-Zinn's work is so spot on. He's the grandfather of mindfulness in our country. Yeah. His work was around working with chronic pain. And I really didn't understand this fully until I went through this in the last few weeks. But there was one night where, nothing, no level of pain meds were touching this pain. And the only thing I could do was just lie in bed. And either my choices at that point were accept the pain or keep fighting it, which I had been doing for hours and hours. It was like 3 a.m. at that point.
Sure.
And so I turned my full attention to the pain, which was not easy. It's not an easy thing to do, but this is, I think, something that can come out of a practice of mindfulness. And I let myself observe the incredible waves. Just these waves were coming through me, wave after wave. And it was incredible. I watched it over time settle
Mm-hmm.
And it was almost like it was kind of moving out of my arm a little bit, and I was able to fall asleep at that point. Now, that's not something I could do every single day by any means, but I learned a lot about that was the quintessential turning towards. That was the quintessential opening up space. Yeah. And it was surrender. And these are all attributes of mindfulness when we really, really let go.
Because part of mindfulness is awareness.
Yeah.
But then like you said, the other components we don't think about because typically people who like myself who don't know, we're not highly educated in mindfulness. It's like, we think it just means like being in the moment, living in the moment, not in the future, not in the past. So, but there's more to it because we're bringing awareness to what we're feeling and being in the moment. Yeah. But then is the other side compassion? Is the other side, like what else? Compassion for ourselves and others, right? Yeah.
And first I want to say, before I even go to compassion, is that what it is learning how to relate to the situation rather than relating from.
Okay. Yeah.
It's turning towards and relating to. So yes, there are two sides of mindfulness. I think about it as a coin. On one side is the awareness, and we've been talking a lot about the awareness. And unless you have the awareness, you can't recognize that you need to turn towards.
Yes. So awareness has to come first.
Right. It's first. Yes. But
okay.
The other side of the coin is compassion, because there are too many times where we may bring the awareness of, I'm suffering, but then we go right into blame.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And so if we can hold this whole practice together, we can go into the awareness of I am suffering. And with the compassion piece, instead of moving into blame, we can say, may I be well.
Yeah.
All humanity suffers. I'm not alone in this.
Yeah.
In this moment, self-compassion is what's called for. And this goes to our cultural values. So if we're suffering, if we're hurting, if we're in, have chronic pain, we're viewing ourselves and our society views us as weak. We're not being productive. We're not being strong and capable and independent, right? The beauty of bringing self-compassion here is that those things are absolutely not only not relevant, but they're destructive.
Yeah.
And if we can care for ourselves wisely, the way that mothers would care for their children, if we could only give ourselves 1% of that level of care, which is just not something that we tend to do.
And, especially all of us middle-aged women, we aren't used to that at all.
We are not used to that.
That's not what we do. Mm-hmm. We worry about everybody else first, and we put ourselves at the very end of the equation.
We sure do.
And so we got to move ourselves up closer to the top. Yeah.
Because
I think, would you say we can take care of others better after we take care of ourselves?
100%.
Right? 100%. I mean, and it's easy to say, but much harder to do.
It is easy to say.
It is easy to say.
Yes.
No, it's harder to do.
It's harder to do.
But, yeah. So
but that's where the practice comes in, because
okay.
And that's why early on I showed you, I really do. When I think of mindfulness, I have my hand on my heart.
On your heart, yeah.
And we could define mindfulness as heartfulness, because it means we care. It means we care about ourselves enough to get present and support ourselves. Yeah. And this heartfulness is a central attribute of being in the world that we love, is bringing our caring, loving, heartful selves into a world that we love. We have to start with ourselves. If we don't understand what it's like to care for ourselves, it's so much harder to bring that out into the world. But it is the prerequisite for a harmonious society.
For sure. Because, there's some, listen, I don't like to get into politics at all. So that's not where I'm heading with this, but there's some serious division right now, between the different sides going on in our country right now. And it's really strong compared to like when we were younger. I don't remember all this chaos up until the past, 10 years or whatever it's been. And so there's a good chance right now when you're listening to this, you're in the throes of it. You're either really happy and haha to the other side, or you are sinking down into, I know people who will sink into a deep depression if this election doesn't turn out how they planned it. Okay. And then we get mad at each other. I think we should be mad at the whole political system, but instead we just get mad at each other. So how can we meet this with a little more kindness?
Yeah.
What do you
absolutely.
think? What do you think we all need to do when this happens?
Yeah. I think we need to get really good at practicing self-compassion.
Yeah.
I have struggled with anger in a way I have never struggled with before. I have watched myself drive by yard signs and have the most obnoxious...
You can feel it in your body. You get upset.
Yes, the most obnoxious thoughts that I then get to laugh at. I get to not take myself too seriously because at some point it's too hard to be that angry, right?
Well, and at some point you also realize there's nothing I can do about this. I
Right.
can't control all these people. I can
Right.
control myself
Right.
and how
That's
I feel
it.
about it.
That's it.
Yeah. So because I think it would be great, because we've been talking about taking this pause. I think this is important to do right now.
Yeah.
Is take that pause. We don't need to head straight to social media.
No.
Right. And start showing our outrage and then fighting with a bunch of strangers, honestly. We're not even talking to people that matter in our lives.
Yeah.
So just, I don't know, maybe a nice little social media break would be great.
A media pause in general is the most healthy thing we could do.
Let's just turn it off. Let's just stop listening to everyone's opinions. Doesn't matter which channel you tune into. Maybe just turn them all off for a while.
Yeah.
Because at this point, a little bit of what's done is done. And there is going to be half of our country struggling.
That's appalled and dismayed
with what happened, and half that, and it doesn't matter who wins. Half of the people will be struggling and half will be victorious and probably feeling like they can put it in the other side's face. Yeah. It doesn't matter which side you're on. So I think the pause is going to be important for us, right? What else? I
think a moment of reflection. I think when I'm thinking about how to do this pause, it requires almost a self-retreat.
Yes.
And making a choice. So for example, and I know this is recorded before it's going to be showed, but I've taken the day off after the election for a reason. Whichever direction it goes, I need to honor my feelings about it. I need to honor...
Yes, you're prepared for the pause you're going to take.
Yeah, I need to honor the experience. It's been traumatic. This road that we've been on has been very traumatic. And I have an intention set to do a self-retreat on that day so that I can let myself feel whatever I need to feel. It's going to take a while to recalibrate no matter what, but I want to set my intention to move forward in a way that is kindest to myself, which will benefit everyone around me, everyone I work with, right? That's my intention for a pause. I feel strongly that we just need to make a commitment to do a U-turn. We're going to be outward focused, right? Really focused on the results. How do we take a U-turn so that we don't stay outward focused? We just come right back. Because if each and every one of us can honor what we're feeling and honor what this has been to us and what it means to us.
Yep. And not put it on other people.
And not put it on other people. That's a really, I think that can be really helpful.
We're going to move forward as we do after every election, you guys. We're going to move forward, and there are always things you can do to help with the things that matter the most to you.
That's right.
Whatever that is. So many issues. So we've got to learn how to feel our feelings. Here's what I'm hearing. Tell me if I'm wrong. We need to stop, feel our feelings. And this is whether it's an election, after the holidays, a breakup. It doesn't matter. Something happens, something bigger happens. We take a pause. We feel our feelings. Like, it's okay that we feel whatever we're feeling. right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's just not, what's not okay is for us to take those feelings to hurt others.
And charge outward. Just charge outward.
To
That's
charge
the
outward.
reactivity. Yeah.
That's the reactivity. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have
Yeah.
to not react. We have to respond.
Yeah. And we can plan.
So we see where we sit, whatever, and then we make a plan.
We can plan a mindful
And then we
response.
can plan to move forward. Whether it's, like I said, after a breakup, maybe you're out there and you lost a job. Like there's so many things that happen. Maybe you've lost a loved one. You've got to sit in those feelings and then plan to move forward in a way that like your body and your mind feel good with. Right. Yeah. I feel like that's what we've got to do.
Yeah. And be authentic to our own needs and really keep in mind what's important. What's important, our families and our households are, what we care about.
Yeah. And this is how we react to things that happen to us. Like you said, things we don't have a lot of control over. Yeah. But I think, and this is a problem a lot of us middle-aged women have too. So I have already told you one of my little favorite parts was about this boulder. Picking up this boulder. So there's a little section in our book, you guys, that says, I'm paraphrasing the whole thing, but basically it's a story of like, there was a monk or whatever, and someone comes by and he asks the monk, is that heavy? And he's like, yes, it's heavy, but only if you pick it up, right? There's no reason to worry about how heavy that boulder is unless you've made the decision you need to pick it up and take it on. And so I loved that because I think it just relates to what we do a lot. We try and pick up boulders that are too heavy for us to carry. And we take on things that weren't ours to take on, right, for others. And we can't do that. And so what are your thoughts on this whole boulder thing? Because I love that little.
I love the analogy.
I really saw it in your book first. I'm going to say it. I was like, I really like that because it's like we have a choice. When we see a problem, boulder, we have a choice. Are we going to pick that up and put it in our own backpack? Or are we going to leave it there for the people that were meant to worry about that boulder?
And that's exactly the thing is I think we sometimes don't recognize the choices that we have in our lives. We act habitually. We act because we think we need to fix something. We think we need to carry the burden for someone. Mm-hmm. We think that's the appropriate response. But how often do we question our actions or our motivations behind the actions and actually take a look at it? Is this something I need to pick up?
Yes.
And some of the times it happens just because we're moving so fast. And so we just do these things that can be very counterproductive for our health and well-being, for our mental health. The thing about mindfulness is that we give ourselves the space to really take a look at what's happening. Am I acting out of my habitual instincts? Do I recognize that I have a choice? Am I just simply reacting?
Yes.
And we can do that when we stop, and we can do that when we do that observation. This is what's going on, right?
Yes.
And we can still make the choice to pick it up and carry it, and then we're gonna find out what happens.
Yes.
But we're all overtaxed. We're all carrying too many burdens.
That's the thing. And I feel like, I have picked up so many other people's boulders throughout my entire life and taken them on as my own problem.
Yeah.
And so I have now gotten to the point though, because you look back and you go, okay, that's a habit and I don't want to do that anymore. Yeah. I don't need to take up everybody's burdens. And so, because then, it gets to the point, it gets so heavy, it just takes you down. You can't even get up. Everything's so heavy. Right. So you have to start getting rid of that. You got to start unpacking all of that.
And that's the gift of middle age too. Yes. I would say that's the gift of midlife, where we've made the mistakes. We know the cost. Yes. And if we're willing to be friendly and kind towards ourselves, we can make the choice. It costs too much. It costs too much.
And it really just, you've heard a lot of people say, like, when you're making a decision or whatever, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no.
It's a no.
It's a no. There's not a maybe. We got to get rid of these maybes because you
Right.
either feel passionately about taking that on.
Yeah.
Or it's not. If you're on the fence, like, I could help, but I don't know if I really want to. That's probably a no. That sounds like a no.
It's probably a no. And it's taking the time to listen to ourselves.
Yeah.
How often is it that we know there's a decision in front of us and we give ourselves the time and space we need to actually
make a good decision
to the right decision? We have such a good compass within us, and yet the compass can get covered up and get muddied because we haven't.
It's like our intuition, like connecting with our own internal intuition and trusting it, because we get those feelings, right? Because if I look at boulders I've picked up in the past, if I went back to that moment, I knew that I didn't want to do that.
Yes.
But I did it. I did it for other people's benefit. I did it for because I thought I needed to, like it was my responsibility to make that person okay.
Yeah.
And we knew, but I hadn't learned yet to trust it.
No, that's right. Trusting it.
Because our bodies, our minds will tell us what the right decision is. We always know. But like you said, we got to sometimes take that time.
I have learned that time is really uncomfortable because you want the answer to come, but you cannot rush the process. And for me, I get a lot of insight, not only through my meditation practice. I get a lot of insight through my meditation practice, but I get a lot of insight by walking, by moving outside.
Yep. Just doing something.
There's something about not doing anything practical and just letting my body kind of follow itself and being in nature. To me, like I can open up a lot of space and get insight that way. I get my insights in the shower all the time, but I give myself the time to make decisions now. It is something I have learned. And I know, sometimes it takes 24 hours, sometimes it takes 48 hours, sometimes it takes 2 weeks, but you know it.
Yep, the time's different for everything. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know it when you've got it. You know it when you have the right decision.
Yep. And you're like, okay, I know this is right. And I'm just going to move forward with that. Yep. And that's being compassionate to us and to others. Yeah. Because us overextending ourselves for others, we're not there for them like they need it anyway.
No.
Right? We're just not. So saying no is sometimes the best thing you can do for the other person too. Because now they can go find the real answer, right? They can go find the solution without you pushing them out from in front of that train, right?
Getting in the way. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And it can be painful because watching people figure it out when you think you really know what they should be doing is hard.
No.
It's super hard. Yeah.
Right. And that is the quintessential tool in the toolbox with the coaching is helping people just uncover their truths.
Yes.
That's it. They always come and say, oh, I want help with this or that. They have the answers. They have the truth.
Yes.
But sometimes they need a little help. Sometimes they need just some mindful listening, just a few questions. Yeah.
Integrative health coach. Tell me what that is, because you're an integrative health coach. What exactly can we expect if we start to work with you?
Yeah, the concept behind it, and Duke Integrative Medicine had created this model. They now call it the health and well-being coaching model, but I appreciate still using the language of integrative because it's the concept that there are all these aspects of our lives, the personal part, the professional part, the relationship part, how we manage the space, in our lives, our homes, our offices, or whatever our spaces are, how we do exercise and eating and how we do mindfulness. All of these things, they're all essential to who we are. They're all essential. And a lot of the times we are overextended in one area or another, and we're neglecting some important aspects of our lives. So in this model, mindfulness is in the center of this wheel of health. And it's saying it is the foundation of self-care, and I don't mean self-care like, let's go get a massage, let's do a bubble bath. I mean, really looking at how to create balance in our lives. Yes. But that mindful awareness and compassion piece is the foundation of making really good choices for ourselves. And so we start with an assessment of where are we in all of these areas and where do we want to be? Because one of the things that gets people confused is that we think we should be a 10 out of 10 in great sleep, great nutrition, great exercise, great relationships, great, self-care practices.
No, God, we can't be at 100% on all that. No.
No. And what people find out is, oh, that's not even that important to me. I'm not in a place where I want to focus on the nutrition piece. It's okay right now. I want to focus on my relationship,
Yes. Okay. So you help get the whole picture and look at it from an outside view. And you probably see things we aren't going to see necessarily.
The people I work with see those things very easily. It's very easy to see them when you're given a chance to actually take a look at what does my life look like?
Yeah. Then you're like, oh, and then you help us decide what area is most important to work on now and kind of bringing it all back to mindfulness and practices and all of that good stuff. So whatever we're focusing on in that whole wheel, right? That's what you'll help us focus on.
Yeah. And how do we even think about balance in our lives? And how do we think about priorities? And it really starts with a vision. What the heck do we want? Because we, especially by midlife, can get so tossed and turned around. We've been raising our kids.
I think sometimes we don't even know what we want. We're confused. No, we don't know what we want. We just want everything to get better. We just want to be better. And we don't know what that entails. Okay. So sometimes it's a matter of someone helping us figure out what really matters to us right now. Because maybe our health isn't the most important thing, or maybe it is, right? Yeah, it could be our work life, like you said, a close relationship, could be it could be health. Yeah. And that's what you just kind of described, this wheel of health. Because I know if you go to her website, she's got this little wheel of health that kind of talks about all this stuff and and you also teach at college, right?
Yeah. So I'm a professor at Colorado State University with our extension system. And what's been really fun, so I've been doing that for 9 years. I've been in different universities doing different things. But what's been really fun about that work is I've been able to develop new mindfulness programs for our communities. So bringing a lot of training into places that have never received mindfulness training. I work a lot with older adults who are extremely receptive to learning about mindfulness and how to apply it in their lives. Yeah. So it's really a lot of fun.
When you're saying older, what do you mean by older? How old? How old are you talking?
Well, there's such a range, of course. I mean,
okay. Well, no, that's what I mean. You say old, and if you say old to a 18-year-old.
Right. It's a 30-year-old, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You're done by 40 if you talk to them. But once you get 40, you're like, no, now it's 80. No, you know what I mean?
So these tend to be groups of people from really 65 and up.
Okay. Yeah.
And everything in between. And age is so relative. I mean,
it is. Yeah. You can be a really young 65 or a really old 65.
Yeah. But what that phase is, so we talked about the big transition I went through into motherhood. And now for me, I'm 51 and this is a big transition in midlife. All sorts of new and different things are coming up. But I think, and what I really learned over the years of teaching this group of people is it's such a transition that comes, 60, 65 as you're moving out of your career or into a different career, or a different phase of life, or retiring.
You got more health stuff going. You just can't do what you could do before. I'm already feeling it now. I'm 51 too. Yeah. I'm feeling it now. You're saying 65.
Yeah, I'm feeling it now.
I'm feeling it now.
It's different. It's a different transition. I really look at these three as entirely different, but such important moments in time. And that is why I love teaching this group of people, because they're really deep in that exploration of what's next, what matters, how do I find meaning and purpose? People can spend their entire lives without having actually taken stock of what the heck's going on, or sat in silence. They don't know how to do it, or they've spent their entire lives living in anxiety and have absolutely no idea that there's another way.
Yep. There's another way to live. Yep.
And then the pain and the illness struggles and the loss of family and friends. And it's complicated. And mindfulness tools can bring them some new ways of, again, relating to their lives, of practicing with some greater acceptance, working with their bodies, working with their hearts, all of that.
Yeah. Okay. So this is what you're going to help us all with. Yeah. And you do just in person in Colorado, you have remote, right?
All in person and remote. Yeah.
You know what? I think that's one of the good things that came out of this whole COVID thing. There's so many more resources available to everyone now because everyone figured out how to do Zoom, how to do Teams, figured out how to go online. Yeah. And it's amazing. Like,
it's even so accessible.
I'm here interviewing you. I can interview people all over the world. It's amazing. And bring people's knowledge to everyone. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, that is one good thing that came out of that and like grocery pickup.
We benefit. Yes, for sure.
I love that all the stores let you just drive up now and they'll just throw it in your car. I'm like, on a busy day, I'm like, I am very grateful for that. Well. Yeah, I love that. So, and part of mindfulness probably is like a gratitude practice too, right?
It totally is a gratitude practice. Yeah. Yeah. You can't have gratitude without the presence piece.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just be running and being like, thank you.
No, you have to let it sink in and feel the gratefulness.
Yeah. It's important. It's an important part of the practice.
I love that. Yeah. And so the best way to get started on our mindfulness journey is, what would you say?
Is really learning how to pause. It is an intention.
Pause. Okay.
It's just an intention. And it can take you anywhere. You design what your practice should look like. Because for some people, they don't have time in the morning, but maybe they'll have a little bit of time at night. Maybe it's during a walk where they can tune in and check in. Maybe it's checking out one of the online classes or doing a virtual meditation session.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just when they wake up and they're lying in bed and they can just give themselves 5 minutes, put their hands on their heart, breathe deeply, say, welcome the day. Maybe that's the starting point.
Yeah, getting a morning practice that works for you.
Yeah. And when I coach people on mindfulness, it is absolutely an individual set of choices because everybody's lives look different.
Yeah, everyone's life is different. Yeah. Like someone may just take that 5 minutes with their cup of coffee in the morning before everybody in the house wakes up. And that's a good practice.
And enjoy it.
And just enjoy the moment and soak it in and get centered for your day. So put the phone down, enjoy your coffee and your moment of silence, but you don't need to start scrolling and checking your emails yet.
You definitely don't. You definitely don't. That's part of the intention.
Yeah. Be a part of your own life.
Yeah.
Just yours. And don't worry about everybody else's for a little bit. And then, then we got to jump into our day, of course. Like that's just how our world works. And maybe end the day the same way. I don't know. That's what I do. I try and open and end it a certain way. And then whatever happens in the middle, not too hard on myself. If I didn't make much progress, I didn't get a big meditation. That's all right. Wasn't meant to be today. Right. Yeah. Just sounds like what you're saying, compassionate to yourself.
Start where you are. Yeah.
Like, it's okay. Yeah.
So my family, whenever we sit down for dinner, which is every single night, there's 3 of us, we take 3 deep breaths before we pick up our fork. It is just a way to get centered together and recognize, here we are at the dinner table together. It is that simple.
Well, did you do that last night, Missy? Because you just said you threw a little bit.
Well, okay. So my son was not home for dinner last night. So no, we did not.
Okay. You had dinner there. Okay. I was going to say, okay, well, those 3 breaths might not have worked. That's what you skipped. You were supposed to do more breath last night.
That's what we see. There we go. That's the implication of skipping, right?
See, you got in an old pattern for 1 second. And then, but like you said, you've been practicing mindfulness so long. It was just a short transition for you.
It was a short blip.
Back to apologizing and getting back in action. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So we have and you guys, so you got to read her book because there's just a lot in it and you're very educated in it too. You've got a lot of research under your belt.
I have a
Okay,
lot of
this isn't
research.
just stuff that you kind of willy-nilly put together here. It's not a long read, you guys. It's like, 150 pages, I would say. Yeah, it's not a hard read, and there's a lot of sections, and my book's sitting right here, and I have tabs all over in mine because I do that to books I love so I can go back and just refresh myself on something that impacted me when I first read it. Okay. And so I have little tabs all over, like the Boulder one. We talked about that one, but there's many, many more in this book that are enlightening. You stop and you think, oh, you have sections on suffering. You know what I mean? How suffering comes into it. What else? I mean, just all,
Working with pain, working with
yeah,
stress.
the limits of mindfulness. Like there's just all kinds of really cool things in it. So you've got to read her book. And then, of course, all her links are in the show notes, you guys. She's got lots of resources and probably they can even, do you have where they can do like a little introductory call with you or, to see if you're the right fit for coaching with.
Yeah.
So people might know exactly what they want to work on and come to you, or they may have no idea what they need to work on, but they just feel like something needs work.
Yeah. And most people think they know what they want to work on, but they learn very quickly.
Oh, then they look at that wheel and they go, oh, that is more important to me now that I think about it.
There's something else going on.
Because we get pounded into our heads that health is the most important, right? Health, exercise, eat right, all this stuff. But you might need to do other work first. Because that's too hard sometimes. It's too hard to control what we're eating and control what we're doing until we figure some other things out, until we're getting better sleep, until we've improved our relationship. Then we can go back and worry about the food we're putting in our mouth.
Exactly. We all have a different order for those things.
It doesn't have to be the first thing, you guys. The good news is that doesn't have to be the first thing because that's a hard one.
It's a hard one.
Midlife, because those pounds don't come off like they used to.
And food is connected with so many complex things.
Emotions and everything else. And we've got all this other health stuff that we've been genetically prone to that we have to heal and get past.
Yeah.
Because you probably are on board with we can heal our own bodies.
Of course I am. I feel like we have endless tools and we have to put the energy into it, but I am not gonna, shy away from valuing the importance of certain medical care and certain other kinds of therapeutic support.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, we need the medical care, but we also need to trust ourselves more.
We have to trust ourselves.
Okay. They're on my team, right? The doctors, the medicine's on my team.
Right.
But I'm still in charge. I'm still the coach of this team, man. I'm going to do. And
sometimes we just have to shift our brains. Sometimes our beliefs are holding us back from optimal
They absolutely
health.
are holding us back. Yeah. So having open heart and open mind, which most of the people listening, that's what they're doing by listening to this podcast, is they're trying to figure out some things. I am. That's why I'm doing it.
In midlife, right? When it's so complicated.
So we can figure out how to finish this whole thing out strong, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, Sue, do you have any other final words of wisdom or a favorite quote or moment or anything that you want to just leave us all with?
I think it's just really important to recognize the value of investing in ourselves and coming back to this self-compassion piece. We're sometimes screaming and yelling that we want things to change and we want things to get fixed. And the gateway there is right here, right through our own hearts. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think the main thing we've taken out of this is the biggest start to mindfulness is take the pause and feel the feelings and move on from there. And then just self-love, right? Self-compassion.
Yeah.
Giving ourselves that gentleness, like you said, that we gave our children. Yeah. And that we give our partners and our coworkers. Not that we shouldn't give it to them. We should, but we've got to give it to ourselves first. Right? Because then it's going to flow out easier to other people when we're taking care of ourselves. And that doesn't, like you said, we're not talking about bubble baths. That might be part of it. You might.
They're great. They're great. I took one last night. Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, take the darn bubble bath. But really what you're doing is being mindful because you're quieting down in that bathtub, right? You're quieting down and connecting with yourself. So it's not just about going to get the mani-pedi and the bubble bath. Like, that's what we all have been sold that self-care is, right? We got to go spend money and do all these things. But really, no, self-care is just, what am I feeling? And what do I feel like doing right now?
And can I open up space for it? Can I just open up space?
And just open up space and keep our eye out for all those boulders and decide, is that mine to pick up or not? Am I past that? Is it not my burden to pick up? Because we got enough stuff coming at us right now that we don't need to pick up any random rocks and boulders. No, we got enough going on in our own lives. But no, we got to just focus on our own path. Oh, Sue, this has been so good. I love it. Yeah.
Thank you.
So guys, get her book because it's a good one. Yeah. It's something you can go back to and reference later. Like I said, it's got lots of different ways to look at things for me in it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Different ways to look at and approach things in our lives. Yeah. Good stuff and bad stuff.
Yeah. It's a work from the heart. I can say that.
No, yes. It's a work from your heart. We love that you're sharing this with all of us. Yeah, this is awesome. Oh, Sue, thank you so much. And you guys tune back in because there's going to be a mini episode with Sue because she is going to teach us a technique for healthy aging. So I'm just going to give you that little teaser. And so you're going to have to listen to her mini episode here so that you can find out what she's going to walk us through. Yeah, to have healthier lives. All right. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks. Listen, I know your time is valuable. And right now I'm feeling super grateful and totally humbled that you chose to hang out with me today. If this podcast resonates with you, could you do me a solid and hit that subscribe or follow button? That's going to help you out because you're never going to miss an episode. And it helps me out because you're never going to miss an episode. And if you have like 30 seconds more, could you leave a 5-star rating and maybe leave a kick-ass review? Thank you so much, and I can't wait to continue our journey on the next episode. Oh, and I can't forget the fine print. You know, the legal jargon. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. We're just two friends on this journey together, and this podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or any other qualified professional. You get it. See you next time.